Hi, good morning, everybody. Thank you all for being here today. My name is Caeli. This is Lois, Arturo, Dr. Nelson, and Dr. Racovita. Our study that we'll be discussing is on emotional well-being and relationship quality among Seventh-day Adventist college students. Emotional well-being can be defined as a multi-dimensional composite that encompasses how positive an individual feels generally and about life overall. It includes both experiential features as well as reflective features. A statement from the North American Division of Seventh-day Adventists that applies to our study is God cares for our whole well-being, mind, body, and spirit, and we honor him by seeking healing and offering compassionate support for mental and emotional struggles. We see emotional well-being as a rising concern among U.S. college students. In a study done by Healthy Minds in 2024 and 2025, moderate to severe depression was reported as 37%. 33% of the study reported moderate or severe anxiety symptoms. 27% reported experiencing non-suicidal self-injury in the past year, with 11% reporting suicidal ideation in the past year. And 38% of the study reported positive mental health and psychological well-being. So funneling it down from emotional well-being to affect, which is what our study specifically focuses on. Affect is how emotions are experienced and expressed from the emotional core of subjective well-being. Positive affect refers to how enthusiastic, energetic, or alert a person feels, with high positive affect involving excitement, focus, and enjoyment, and low positive affect bringing sadness and low energy. Negative affects, however, can be defined as feelings of distress and unpleasant emotions such as anger, guilt, fear, or nervousness, with low negative affect reflecting calmness and peace. Positive affect among college students is linked to better academic, physical, and social outcomes, lower depression, reduced engagement in risky behaviors, and greater life satisfaction. Negative affect has been strongly shown to predict trait anxiety. Lastly, on affect, it also relates to cyberloafing, which is personal internet use during class, where browsing, gambling, and gaming are associated with positive affect and information sharing with negative affect.
So for our study, we chose to focus on the relationship variables, which include friendship, mentorship, and boundaries, and how they are associated with emotional well-being, specifically positive and negative affects. Why we chose these main variables is because over 95% of the global population views relationship and friendship as important and contributed to affecting their well-being. And then weak boundaries is linked to anxiety, depression, and burnout. And in this case, personal boundaries is being explained as self-driven limits an individual set of what they consider acceptable behavior, communication, and influences their relationship and environment. Mentorship in this case predicts emotional regulation and reduces mental health risks. The current research that is out there and the gaps in those literature is that some of the key findings we found was that good friendship quality leads to higher well-being, leads to relationship self-change, and helping friends present in your life leads to higher daily positive affect, as well as even having online friendship with another person also improve a person's life and life satisfaction. The gap in the studies on friendship is that this study does not cover a U.S. population, nor do they cover a traditional college age sample. When it comes to boundaries, self-distancing, which is an aspect of boundary setting, reduces emotional reactivity, which can affect a person's positive affects. And weak boundary protection is linked to lower mindfulness, which also affects well-being. The gaps in this study is that there's limited studies on, again, college students in a faith institution, which are focused on. And then when it comes to mentorship, strong mentorship can lead to less emotional suppression, which can lead to better well-being. And mentorship is also linked to a psychological state. Also, early mentorship intervention or having early mentors can predict later life flourishing and life satisfaction. And the gap in this study are that the research does not address a big institution like ours does, nor is there any known research that ties mentorship with affect.
So as Caeli and Lois were talking, this study's purpose was to explore the relationship between the quality of three types of relationships, being friendship, mentorship, and boundaries, and the positive and negative affect they may have among undergraduate students here at Southern Adventist University. Next, I will be discussing are informing the methods that we used for this study. So for our study design, we had a cross-sectional design that was conducted using an online survey through SurveyMonkey that was about 10 to 15 minutes. Our sampling, we used a non-random convenience sample that gave us a sample size of 204 undergraduate students. The requirements / inclusion needed to be a participant were that they had to be an undergraduate student here at Southern Adventist University and must be 18 years or older. The recruitment process we had were done in 3 different forms, those being through flyers that were presented on various locations on campus, through social media posts that me and my 2 other group members used through our social media, as well as in-person outreach. On top of that, we did an incentive to allow individuals a more reason to participate, and that was a $20 gift card that was given through a drawing. And lastly, our data analysis. We used the application for our data analysis with the IBM SPSS statistic version 31, and our significance threshold was significant being 0.05. And the last slide I'm going to be presenting is about the scales that we used for all of our independent variables. And the only thing I'm going to be pointing on about this slide is just the reliability, showing that all of our scales had a good to excellent reliability.
Before I go into sample characteristics, the study was approved first at the Department of School of Social Work and then to the Institutional Review Board here at Southern. The sample was a little over 50% of the sample was white. The next largest group was African Americans or Black students at almost 20%, First Peoples 6%, and people who listed various other things at 19.6. In terms of ethnicity, not surprising, a little over a quarter were reported that they were Hispanic or Latinx, and Southern is a Hispanic serving institution. The sample is primarily female, primarily Seventh-day Adventist, no surprise there. And in terms of class standing, about almost 2/3 of the sample were upperclassmen, juniors or seniors. So in terms of the descriptives for variables, just a few things to mention here. Student scores, put them in the moderate range for positive affect, the low range for negative affect, and in terms of friendship, they were in friendship satisfaction in the moderate range, and for boundaries on the lower to poorer end of having good boundaries. So in terms of results, looking at how the predictors panned out when it comes to predicting negative and positive affects, all 3 independent variables explained only 7% of the variation in positive affect, and the regression model was not statistically significant. Neither were any of the individual variables. However, to note, the largest contributor, although not statistically significant, was mentoring network support. In terms of predicting negative affect, among the 3 variables, they explained almost 17% of the variance in negative affect. The model was not significant. However, one of the variables was a statistically significant predictor of negative affect, and that is friendship network satisfaction, where higher satisfaction with one's friendship network was associated with lower negative affect. And among all the variables, emotional support, mentoring was the largest contributor, although not significant. In terms of the summary, this is the first study known to us to combine friendship, mentorship, and boundaries in predicting affect, and also at a faith-based institution. So friendship network support significantly predicted lower negative affect, but it did not predict positive affect. The mentorship scale was not a statistically significant predictor for positive or negative affect, and also the same for boundaries. So in terms of how this compares with previous research, consistent with the research, friendship satisfaction with one's friends or friendship networks is associated, was associated with lower negative affect. We did not find boundaries to be a significant predictor in this study, and in previous studies, it has been shown to be statistically significantly related to affect. However, in those samples, they looked at non-college student samples, and that perhaps could have explained the difference. Both boundaries and mentorship did not turn up to be significant predictors as we were expecting given the literature, and as will be discussed in the limitations, some of that may have been due to low power for some of the statistical analysis.
So, the camera needs to catch me. Okay, all right. So, in terms of strengths and limitations, like every study, this study also has them. And I want to highlight a couple of strengths. Number one is that all the scales are valid, and both in the literature and in sample reliability. So we tested those. We have an adequate sample, although in some we would have liked to have more because of that last bullet point in the limitation column. But one of the aspects that the research, the purpose of the research was intended to measure these relationship aspects and how they influence affect, positive and negative affect in college students. And our sample was overwhelmingly traditional college students. So that is a really good strength to have because that's what we set up to measure. In terms of limitation, of course, we have the convenient sample. So whoever was available here on campus, we had one single institution, and we only had one faith tradition represented overwhelmingly as a majority. So it would have been nice to see other influences. However, our campus is, the majority of our campus at the undergraduate level is Seventh-day Adventist. So it didn't come as a surprise, but it's still a limitation. In terms of recommendations for further practice and research, since we know that mentoring, boundaries, friendships, all these are impacting positive and negative affect, institutions should be able to incorporate and introduce programs that are helping students and mentoring students, providing relationship networks for them from the first year experience on. So you're creating those kind of communities from the start where students can receive workshops about appropriate boundaries, for example. Peer mentors can organically come together, but institutions have a role in creating these spaces and availability of programs for the students. In terms of future research, we would love for this study to be taken on and embraced with a much more diverse sample at different institutions, both faith-based and secular, to see how we compare. And also, it would be interesting to see how does the role of faith and religiosity is moderating all of these other variables. Thank you very much.
Thank you.